Hey, good morning or afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. This is Mark Hamblin here, and today I'm going to take you through our Quality Inspector application for Business Central. And, we're going to cover off how to move from paper to electronic and just all the goodies that we have available within that Quality Inspector application. Now, to get started, pretty simple. The name sort of says it all. It's there to allow you to do quality inspections electronically within Business Central. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these bullet points. We'll see a lot of this in the demo, including calculations and things like that, where you can, have calculated fields and create your own calculations to use as tolerances, those sorts of things. AQL, so formal, ISO standard sampling capabilities built in. Uh, Integration with Business Central workflows, Power Automate, and Teams. We'll look at all of those during the demo. The ability to use it on mobile devices, right? So if you have quality inspectors running around in the shop or wherever it happens to be, or at the receiving bay or whatever it is, they can use a tablet or a phone to do those quality inspections. We do have the ability to, you know, automate a lot of the test creation. So once you set up the rules, we know exactly when a test is going to be required, and we can generate those inspections, on the fly automatically, based on, production activities, purchasing activities, or just warehouse movements. So I move product from the warehouse into a quarantine bin, as an example, that may trigger an inspection. But because we have integration with the Business Central workflows and Power Automate, we can actually, create tests anywhere in the system. So we're not restricted to just production, receiving, and warehouse activities. You can create a test on any record within Business Central, and we'll see that in one of the examples coming up here. And we can automate that using Power Automate or the workflows within Business Central. All right, and down below, I already said that, but it works with any table. So if you have a customization in your system and you want to run inspections on that, you can do it. It works with anything in Business Central, not just items, not just purchasing or warehouse, anything. All right. Now that all sounds pretty good and you're, high level, but we'll get into the details. But one of the things that I wanted to mention, actually, let's go back a sec. There's lots of stuff here. And when people want to go to electronic quality or electronic maintenance and things like that, it, it sounds great, when you talk about it, but it can be kind of tough to move into an electronic system if you're on a paper-based system. And so what we have within Quality Inspector, uh, you know, we have the ability to go in and read those existing paper quality inspection documents, convert them into electronic documents, and create the tests for you. So that helps you a little bit with the setup. However, there's something more that you can do. You could keep working with your paper-based quality documents, and then as people enter all the values on the piece of paper, you can bring it in, scan that in, or take a photo, but scan it in, and the system will automatically read the values that people have written in and bring them in electronically. So that gives you the best of both worlds, right? What it says up here, significant process change. Now, you don't have to change the process that you're using out in the warehouse or the shop to capture the quality information. But on the back end, you've now got that electronic information stored that you can report on, that you can refer to, all of those sorts of things. So we'll have a look at how that works here in a sec. And that sec starts right now. So let's jump in and have a quick look at how, first of all, Quality Inspector is set up, and then how you can use it in some of those scenarios that I just talked about. So what I'm in here is the Quality Inspector Administrator Role Center. So there's a couple of role centers that you can use, but this guy here allows us to go in and set everything up and look at our outstanding tests and all that kind of stuff in here. And let's look a little bit about how you actually set up Quality Inspector, because it'll help illustrate kind of what it can do. So if we go into the basic setup here, it's a bunch of stuff. But again, that receiving, production, and warehousing, that's where we can sort of automate those tests. So if I come in here, what it allows us to do is indicate exactly when we want a test to be created automatically, like when I post a warehouse receipt or when I create a warehouse receipt. Like I want to execute the tests on product before I've even received it. That is possible. or when a purchase order is received or whatever. So these are the global triggers for when I want to create a test. Now, for specific items or specific vendors or other conditions, we can prevent these tests from being created automatically. But globally, this is when those tests are going to be created. And I can also do things like, hey, I'm not allowed to actually post a warehouse receipt unless a test already exists for it, right? So you can do things like that, prevent, posting if we don't have the tests defined. So same thing, on the receiving, on the production side, we can, do it when we output, when we do output, or when we release a production order, or refresh a production order, various triggers that you can set up here for when we actually generate those quality inspections. So out on production and assembly as well. And you'll notice here, if you notice on the last one, there is a little shortcut there to, create a rule to determine which product actually we create a test for, right? So this is generically saying we're going to create a test under these conditions, including the number of units and all that kind of stuff. And then this generation rule is sort of on a, let's stay on a per item basis for now, but I'll show you how that works. You can set up the rules that determine, which items or which records more appropriately get quality inspection tests assigned to them. And then on the warehousing, same thing. You can come in, and when you move product into a bin, we can automatically generate a test. So you might have a process where, I receive product, and then on the put away, some of it goes into a QA bin because it needs to be QA'd, and some of it goes into the warehouse. Well, as soon as I put something into the QA bin, I can trigger a quality inspection for that specific product. Okay. All right. So those are the basics. There's a bunch of other stuff like, you can set up all sorts of things, how you want to show the tests, and the picture stuff like using Doc Extender, which is nice because it can, put it in SharePoint and things like that. A whole bunch of other stuff that you can set here, but the basics really are the triggers. Actually, one last thing I'll mention is this personal device interface. Down here, um, this allows you to define what the brick looks like. So the brick is the display on a phone or tablet or anything like that. And so you can configure this to have whatever you want. So here, for example, I've got the description, the serial number, the lot number, the item number, all of that gets put in that block. So when I'm looking at a mobile device, I can see all that detail. This is also what's used with the Teams integration. So when we share a test via Teams, it's going to use this to put in the Teams message automatically, so the users that don't have a Business Central license will still get all these details. So that means if you have, shop floor employees or warehouse employees that don't have a Business Central license, but you want to share some of this quality inspector information with them, they will have access to that through Teams. As long as they have a Teams license, they'll be able to access the information that's presented in here. Okay, so I'll show you how that looks in a moment as well. And then again, I'll show you almost right away, the AI stuff where we can come in and, suggest tests and read, documents in and things like that. Okay, so anyway, that's the first part of the setup, very basic. The only thing you normally have to touch when you go in there is change whether you want the test created automatically or not. But when you install Quality Inspector and run the setup wizard, all of that stuff gets set. Now, the next thing to look at is, okay, the people that are going to be doing these inspections. So if we look at that, we'll come in here and we can set up different inspectors or set up a row for everyone here. And this determines what specific people are allowed to do within Quality Inspector. So this guy here who likes to talk a lot, he's allowed to do everything. But, somebody like this that's maybe just doing receiving, we don't want to list necessarily everybody that's going to post a purchase order. They're allowed to do things like, create the test. So if there's a test set to be automatically created, it'll do that, but they're not allowed to do anything else. Or, this person up here, they're allowed to create tests, but they're not allowed to, approve the test or finish the test or reopen it or delete it. So you've got very granular permissions around what individual people are able to do within Quality Inspector. All right. Now, a couple other things actually on setup that I wanted to mention here. There's a few things. that we'll get into. So that was the quality inspectors. Let's talk about grades for a second. So most of the time, people are just using pass fail. So grade is really an indication of where we are within that test. And there's in progress, pass, and fail. Those are the most typical that people use. And we also have the ability to add in actual grading. So you can say, based on the data entered into a test, that product automatically gets classified as a certain grade. So a lot number could be classified as a grade B. Maybe I test it and the moisture content or something is too high. Based on that, the system will automatically classify it as a grade B. Well, grade B I can do a lot with, but I'm not allowed to consume it. I'm not allowed to use it in my own production activities. I can sell it though. Other people can buy it, and I can sell it and all those sorts of things. So there's a bunch of things I can do there with a grade B. Like a failure here, what I can do is, I can purchase failed grades for some reason. I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to move them from location to location. I'm not allowed to consume it, and I'm not allowed to pick it, and a bunch of stuff, right? So you have very granular capabilities here on the lot number, serial number, package number to control what happens with product that's, failed a test or passed a test or whatever. And you'll notice here on this pass one, instead of just allow, it's allow finished only. So that means the test may have passed. It may be sitting in a state that says it's passed, but until somebody approves that, in other words, finishes the test within Quality Inspector, I'm not allowed to sell that product, but I'm allowed to do pretty much everything else. Okay, all right. So that's the grades. The AQL stuff I mentioned, acceptable quality limits. Uh, this is sort of the ISO standard. So we've got the inspection levels, lot sizes, sampling plan, all of those sorts of things. So this is one of the tables that you need for AQL implementation. So if you've got an ISO program uh, that you need to document and need to do the AQL type sampling, all of that stuff comes in when you run the setup wizard. You've got all the standards from the ISO standard in here. This is the first table, and then the second table for the AQL is actually your AQL limits and rejection points and everything that you can set up. So again, all of this comes in automatically. If you're using AQL, it's all there and ready to go. All right, so that's the basic setup. Not much to it. All right, you run the setup wizard. Pretty much everything comes in. You can add in the users that you want to have access to the system, or just have a line for everyone that has access to everything for testing. Once you've done that, what you want to do now is set up your templates. So the way Quality Inspector works is you set up a template first. A template is really your entry form for the data that you're going to capture while you're doing your inspections. So if I open up this templates here, I've got a few already, and we'll look at one that's sort of pre-done. So I've got, for example, a production template here. And these templates, you can have one template that applies to 5,000 items, or you could have 5,000 items, or sorry, 5,000 templates, one for each item. I wouldn't recommend the latter one. I would do, as few templates as possible and apply that to as many items as possible. So a few things here. Once we've got this template set up, or once we started, we just give it some deep, default stuff up at the top here. You can change the number series if you want. So different types of tests can have different numbering, all sorts of different things you can set up here, including your AQL grouping and everything else. But down here is where, the real fun starts. This is where we set up effectively what your entry form is going to be. So what this is telling me is I need to capture all of this information here when I do that quality inspection. And these fields will have things like, in this case, I can enter a pass or fail. So when I do the data entry, it's going to ask me for either pass or fail. On this one, I'm able to enter a number between 1 and 1,000. But in order for that to pass, it has to be between 100 and 150. So this is just standard Business Central, filtering nomenclature that you're using, or filtering notation. And so you're just going to come in and set what it constitutes a pass in here. So there's no like low limit, high limit, tolerance, all that kind of stuff. you're setting this up with just a little field here that determines what that's going to be. And then you can set a description as well, right? Now, this one at the bottom here is interesting because this unit cost, we are actually not capturing any information. We're not asking for any information. This is actually a lookup field to the item to grab the unit cost from the item. And that's just there. I just threw it in on a demo a while ago to illustrate that you can actually do calculated fields and lookup fields. So if I go into edit field here, it's going to come in and it's a calculated value. So you can set up all sorts of different types of fields, right? Advanced configuration just gets me out of the wizard and shows me the, the full field thing. But this is going to be, calculated value. And that calculation, guess what it is? It just says, hey, go to the item table and grab me the unit cost field. That's it. That's as simple as that. And based on the item that's on the test, it's going to grab it. But we can do all sorts of fun stuff in here. So for example, I could add in formulas, right? I can add in if statements or, mathematical formulas and all sorts of things. I can also come in and add in information from the test. So as an example, I could figure out, I could have a formula based on the sample size or any of the fields that are in here I can use within the formula that I define. And the special text, this is where that unit cost came from, I can grab a field from any of these tables here. So the item number, this as an example is the item number, but the item table, I can grab any field out of the item table. I can grab any item attribute. So if you have your tolerances set on the item attributes, I can grab them from there. Like if I have a standard length as an attribute for this product, I can grab it out of there. I can grab information from the routing associated with that item, the customer associated with the document. So assuming this is a sales side inspection, I can grab details from the customer table, vendor table, so on and so forth. This measure here is the quality measures from the routing. So if you've already gone down the road of setting up Business Central to use quality measures, which is a basic informational tool, I can use the tolerances defined in the quality measures as well. So if you like the idea of setting sort of a min-max tolerance type thing, you can do that. You just set that up in the quality measures in Business Central, and then you can use that in Quality Inspector. And a few other things, lookup tables and stuff like that. So you can define all sorts of formulas. I'll show you another example of a formula in a moment. But in this case, this field is simply, it's a lookup. It's simply going to look up the item cost for whatever item ends up being on this test. And you can set a whole bunch of other values here and everything else. Simple as that. That's how you set up lookup fields. And again, that calculated field could have come in and, take, multiplied length by weight or something like that. Probably wouldn't want to do that, but, maybe you wanted to calculate out volume and you have length, width, and height. You could have a field here that calculates the volume without having to do any manual entry to get that. And to add additional fields, I simply hit Add Fields to Template, and I've got a lot of options here. I can choose an existing field. Like let's say there I had the length. Maybe I also want to grab the width now because I forgot to add that the first time. I can either create a new field, right? So new field here, or I can simply come in and grab the existing width field that I already have and just add that in. And now I've got the length and the width. So when I create a test, it's going to ask me for this information. And maybe on this one, I want to do, length of 20 to 30 or something like that. Okay. All right. So that's the basics of it. Now, you might be saying, okay, this is a bit of an issue here because, let's say on the weight, I'm going to do weight here. On the weight, like I'm going to have this test associated with 100 different products, and every product has a different weight. I don't want to create 100 different tests just so I can have different tolerances here for that each individual product. So what we're going to do is go back and do exactly what I showed you before, except this time we're actually going to do it. What I'm going to do is then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take, the item, and I'm just going to do gross weight here times 0.95 ... and then I'll just actually copy that because then I don't have to click times 1.05. So guess what that's going to do? That's going to take, whatever my gross weight of the item is less 5%. up to the gross weight of the item plus 5%. Now I can assign this test to any item I want, and it's automatically going to set the tolerances based on that field off the item card. Or as I mentioned, one of the attributes or the quality measures that we've got defined for that item. So makes it very easy to come in and create tests that can be reused across multiple items. A few other things while I'm here. You can set, of course, now this, I could have actually come in and set this to the same so that the text that shows up to the user shows them what the actual measurement should be between. And this expression formula here, again, that's that lookup. That's a calculated field. So it's just taking item cost and that's it. By the way, I could take item cost and multiply it by the quantity that I'm testing if I want to get a total cost of what I'm actually inspecting here. A few other little things. For any one of these measurements, I can come in and add instructions to it. And these instructions could be a note. So I can come in here and effectively write a book about what I want the person to do while they do an inspection. Or I can add in a URL or document attachments. So if I plug in a URL here and somebody goes to open the note while they're doing the inspection, it's going to pop up that web page and show them all the details on that web page. And of course, I can add in attachments to this as well, and we can pop up the attachments related to this specific inspection criteria, right? So when I'm measuring weight, I could have a whole bunch of instructions around how to measure the weight, links to external documents, whatever the heck I want to do there. We also have the ability to use tooling. So in here, I can come in and I can define, like these are all my existing tools that I've defined, and I can actually add tooling onto this test. And then when I'm actually executing the inspection on this, like this torque wrench here, that has a whole bunch of stuff associated with it, like the calibration certificate, the interval, when it needs calibration, all those sorts of things. And I can record that alongside that inspection. So, so for the inspection certificates and things like that, I know exactly which tooling I used, which measurement tools I used, were they certified, all those sorts of things. And when I'm doing the test, I can actually record the specific serial number of the tool I'm using. So if I don't really care about, managing each tool individually with calibration records, I can just have a generic tool for torque wrench, and I can record the serial number of that torque wrench during the inspection. So I know exactly which tool I used while I was doing that inspection. All right, so those are the basics, right? I mean, there's a lot to it, and there's probably a lot more to it. But I simply come in, I define my fields, indicate what users are allowed to enter, and then indicate what constitutes a pass or a fail. Okay, pretty simple. Now this one, I added one field that already existed. Let's go through the exercise of starting from scratch. And I'm just going to show you a quick way, if you're already on a paper-based quality system, we can build up these templates pretty quickly and easily. So for that, I'm going to go into this 5S inspection. I've already created the header. It's pretty basic. I've got this, and I might want to put a different number series there to differentiate this type of work center inspection from a normal product inspection, but that's okay. And I can change the caption that shows up when we're doing the test, a bunch of stuff like that. But I've just entered that this is going to be a 5S inspection. Now, I happen to already do these, and I have a paper document that I use to do these inspections and everything else. So now what I'm going to do when I say this, add this fields to this template, instead of manually doing it, I'm going to do this detect fields from a picture. Now, before I do that, I'll just mention this determine fields with AI. What that does is if it's a product, I'll describe the type of inspection I want to do, a few words, and it'll look at the bill of materials, the item, the description, all those sorts of things, and it'll guess what types of measurements I need to do. I shouldn't say guess. It'll artificially intelligize. I don't know, that's not a word. Anyway, it'll figure out what tests I likely want for that type of product, build the fields for me, and then I can manipulate it at the end. So if you want a quick way to sort of get the template done, that's a pretty nice way of doing it. But we're going to do this because I've got the paper-based test stuff already. This is what I'm going to use. So what I'm going to do is I've got this document. This came from CI Toolkit. I just found it online. So we don't actually do work center inspections in the office here, but I found it online, CI Toolkit. And I just printed it out, filled it in, and we're going to see what that looks like here. So I'm just going to open it up real quick in Acrobat as soon as it loads up. And this is what I've got, right? I printed it out, somebody filled it in, they put the work area in, their name, and they've got all these check boxes here, right? So this is the thing. And I'm actually not going to use this one. I could use this one. What I'm actually going to do is use the one that hasn't been filled in yet, which is what I probably should have shown you the first time. But that's okay. It's exactly the same. It just happens to be the raw PDF that hasn't been printed or anything. So this is what I'm using. I'm going to grab all of this stuff and build my inspection with it. So when I grab that, I'm just going to open it up here. What the system is going to do is it's going to send it up to the Azure Document Intelligence. It's going to do its thing. It's going to come back and it's going to tell me what it thinks I should have for my quality inspection in Business Central. Okay, so here it is. It's picked out all of those things in there. It knows if it's a yes, no, if it's text, if it's a date, all of that kind of stuff. It's figured out automatically. And now I can just basically select all the ones that I want on my test, and away we go. I'm not going to do them all. I'm going to do 1, 2. It's sorted by text, so 1, 2, 3 are not exactly right after each other. So I'm going to go in and do a bunch of these guys, and we'll do date and work area. So I'll grab a bunch of these, right? So pretty simple. Hit go, and guess what? It creates all those fields for me, and there's my inspection that I can now enter directly into Business Central. Okay. All right. So I think I beat the heck out of building a template. I lied. I haven't, because I didn't talk about any of this stuff. You can obviously attach documents. So if you have test documents and things like that, you can attach it to the template that are available when people are doing the testing, so that they've got instructions, things like that. You can create notes, all sorts of fun stuff there. But once we've got the template set up, okay, we now need people to enter this information against an item, a lot number, serial number, those sorts of things. So the way we do that is with the test generation rules. So I'm going to open that guy up here. And on this one, I already had this set up ahead of time. And so this one I'd preset. And this is an example of where we can use this quality inspector against any table or any module in the system. So I have my safety logbook installed in the system. And the safety logbook is a free application from us. Just if you want an HSE logbook, that is the tool to use. And in that HSE logbook, the safety log, I've got a log type of audit. And every time I create an audit, guess what? It's going to come in and create a 5S inspection for me, right? Now, this one here, this is really what we want. We want a work center inspection against work centers. And you can choose, you set these tables up. So we're going to do an inspection against the work center because this is a 5S inspection. And now I can put in filters here. And I'm going to show you on a different one how we set that up by item. But I can put in filters and say, hey, we only want, an inspection when we're doing, work center, 90T breaks, right? So I can set in filters there to determine, when we create this test. Okay. And what I'm going to do here, this is the default, right? In the setup, I said, hey, we want to automatically create a test when we do output. Well, I don't want a 5S inspection every time we do output, so I'm going to turn that off. So now the only way, and I could actually even just go manual here, the only way we're going to create this inspection on a work center is if we create one manually. Okay. But these are the rules you set up. You can come in here and set up everything. And I'm going to show you one that's, you guys don't care about this. You care about tests against lot numbers and serial numbers and things like that. So I'll show you that in a sec. But this is a cool way to look at how the AI stuff works. So at any rate, I sucked this in. I said, hey, we're allowed to create tests against work centers. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to create a test, a 5S inspection. I'm going to do it against a work center, not an audit. And I'm going to choose a specific work center to do that test against. Let's do finishing mill for today. I'm going to do that, and it's going to create that test for me automatically. Now, this is the actual thing that people are going to be doing their data entry against. And there's a whole bunch of stuff up here. So again, I'll show you in a moment how we track item numbers, lot numbers, serial numbers, variant codes, all that kind of stuff in here. How we do the AQL sampling and all of that kind of stuff. how we manage all of that in here. Okay, I'll show you that in a sec. But this one is against the work center. And how do we know it's against the work center? Down here, this control information tells us what we're dealing with. So if this was a test against a purchase order, this would show me my purchase order information down here. So again, we can have the quality inspector connected up to any record within the system. Okay. So now it's pretty simple. I can simply come in here, type in my value, or use a lookup list to enter what I've got, right? I can just come in here and do yes or no or whatever I want and manually enter this. And if my value here doesn't match my tolerance, my past criteria, it's going to end up as a fail. Okay, so that's pretty easy. I've got a stack of these documents. I'm going to manually come in here and enter all the data. Or you may have already expected this might happen. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to read what somebody wrote in on that piece of paper. So I'm going to upload that document. I can also take a picture, but I'm going to upload that document that was handwritten, the one you saw before, bring that in. It's going to go in and it's going to read all the text that somebody has written in and automatically fill in the fields for me. So it'll take a second here. So this is great. I mean, this is pretty basic stuff, but it's come in here. It's recognized all the fields that are in the test. It read them all out of the document, and it's, those check marks, some of them didn't look very well written. It figured it out, knows which were yes, no. It read in, the work area, the person, all that kind of stuff. I just hit OK, and I filled in my test result. Simple as that. So for a 5S inspection, that's pretty basic, but you can imagine if you've got something that's, an Excel sheet that you normally print out and fill in, well, you just upload that and it'll fill in all of these values for you automatically. I should also mention, as far as AI goes, we've also got this hands-free data captures where I can come in and I can just talk to the system. I could say length was 5, width was 10, height was 11, and it'll read all of that and then automatically fill in the results as well. Okay, so that's pretty nifty too. Okay, so that's, how to set up an inspection, how to, read it in from a file, all that kind of stuff. But it's not really that relevant because we care about items and lot numbers. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this production example here real quick. And is this the guy I want? That's the guy I was looking at earlier. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to use the receiving example. That might be better. Nothing like preparing for these demos, making stuff up on the fly here as I go. Okay, so this receiving demo, all I'm grabbing out of this is I'm grabbing the height, lead, blah, 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 all of this stuff, right? Very basic thing that I'm capturing and receiving. And again, you can do this on outbound shipping as well. You can have a checklist before something's allowed to be shipped. You have to go through and do a little checklist on the shipping. And here's a pretty similar example where I've come in and used that formula to go, plus or minus 5%. And I've, given a little extra text here and stuff like that to make it pretty. But that's my test. Now in the test generation rules, what I've got set up on this one, I've got two here. I've got one that's set up that says, hey, if I buy it from this vendor and the item category code is chair, I'm automatically going to create a test for it. This one, it's much more specific. It says when I buy from, vendor, 10,000 here, and the item number is LS2, I'm also going to create a test. It's probably unusual that you wouldn't do this all in the one filter, but you can have as many trigger rules here as you like. And if you want to create one, you can just hit this create receiving rule and or production rule or whatever, and it'll actually step you through all the different options for it. Like I only want quality inspection tests when I receive it into a specific warehouse or specific vendor or whatever, or only if, it's special order or whatever. So you can set all that up. It just walks you through, and all it really does is build out these filters for you. Okay, so what I've got, again, I've got my template that says these are the things I want to inspect. And I've got this rule that says whenever I receive something from this vendor that's an LS2, we're going to create a test automatically. Okay, so that's set up. I've got my fields. I've got my rules for how it gets generated. And my setup says that I automatically generate a test when I receive a PO. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to go into a purchase order here, and I happen to have one made already. We're going to go into this guy here, And we'll just expand him out. And we're ordering 10 of these guys, and we're going to receive 10. And if I look at the lot tracking information, we've got a lot number in there, quantity of 10, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go ahead and receive this. We could check to see if there's already tests for it. We can create a test manually from the purchase order if we want, those sorts of things. But we don't need to do any of that. All we're going to do is hit post. I'm going to receive these. And I also had a setting, I don't think I mentioned it on the setup, that will automatically pop up and show me the test. Now, that you normally don't have that turned on. It's great for demos, but the person doing the receiving in the PO probably doesn't want to see the test. But this is the test that it generated for us automatically. Okay, and here again, I can come in and I can enter, all my values, whether they pass or fail, and let's do undamaged just so everything passes. And here you'll notice it says between 4.8 and 5.3. That's the calculated value of the weight of this product. And away we go. Now, if this failed or for whatever reason I want to share this with somebody, I mentioned that Teams integration. If I hit the share to Teams here, what that's going to do is it's going to pop up, Teams sharing window here, and give it a sec to wake up. Wakey. All right. So this panel here, that is what non-Business Central users will have access to. So if I just have a Teams license, but I don't have BC license, I can still get all the information I need for, oops, didn't mean to do that. All the information I need from this. So the way I had it set up, I configured I want description, then item number, then lot number. And that's what it's showing me here. And the purchase order that this is coming from. So I could share this to somebody in receiving and say, hey, go do an inspection here. And they got the PO number and everything they need without me having to type anything. Okay, so that's a little bit of the advanced Teams integration there. Now on here, a couple other things. I can also come in and enter, notes, like write a book here about what I found. The instructions and all this stuff comes from, the main template, those sorts of things. I'm good to go. And that's pretty much it. So now the test is done. I can mark this as finished, and everything's good, and I can sell it or whatever I like. If it was failed and I marked it as finished, we wouldn't be able to maybe sell that lot number or, put it away or whatever rules I've set up in the permissions. If I expand this out just as an aside, it does bring in the lot numbers and everything automatically from the purchase order, all that kind of stuff. It's brought in my sampling information because I had this set up to be sampled. And down here under control information, as I mentioned, this will update depending on the type of thing that you're testing. So in this case, we know it's, for vendor 10,000, it's a purchase order, the purchase order line number. That information tells us, where this test is coming from. Okay. All right. Now, there's a couple other things. If I actually fail this test, like if one of these values was a failure, and I finish this test, I might want something to happen on this. Like I might want to automate a response. Like for example, instead of manually moving this inventory to another bin or another location or negative adjusting it out of the system or any of those sorts of things, I can automate every one of these actions here. So if I want this all automated just based on the fact that I failed this test, I can do that. And the way I do that is with a workflow. Okay. And I'll show you actually, before I show you the workflows, I'm just going to back out of this and show you one other little thing. Take a look at this up at the top here. It says quality inspection test moved 10 of LS2 from main to blue. How the heck did it do that? That's pretty magical. It's also a workflow. So let's look at the workflows in Business Central. And I lied, I'm going to take exactly 60 minutes. It'll probably take longer, actually, if I keep going the way I am. But what I did on this was this workflow here. It said, hey, when I create a quality inspection test that's the receiving template, I immediately want to move that product from the location I received it in to my QC location. And I'm going to post that transaction immediately. Okay, so that's what it did. It went in and it moved the inventory that I just received from the main location where I received it into my QC location automatically through the workflow. And I can add in, basically any triggers I want in here. So there's a whole bunch of different or sorry, responses, not triggers, but triggers as well. So I can block that lot. I can do all of these different things based on what happened in Quality Inspector. So I want to return it to the vendor if it failed. Great, I can do that. I want to negative adjust it. Great, I can do that too. I can do all of those things that automatically instead of having to do them manually. And another quick example of the workflows here, a receiving fail, which is what I was talking about. So the quality inspection test failed. It was, the bicycle checklist in this case. Well, what do I do when that fails? Well, I move the inventory to a scrap location. I block the serial number so that nobody can do anything with it. And I create a new quality inspection test automatically to go in and do a corrective action report or do a retest or whatever I like. And you notice there's no parameters for this. It automatically does it based on the rules that are set up in Quality Inspector. So you can automate a ton of stuff. All right. So that's the workflows and the basics of how it works, right? In this case, when I receive the PO, it created the test automatically. Normally it doesn't pop up. I have the option set up to pop it up. Moved inventory, did whatever I asked it to automatically. Pretty straightforward. Now, actually, I'm going to show you one last thing here before I show you some Power Automate, assuming I don't run out of time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, let's see if I can find one here. Let's grab this one. So this is a pathogen test. So this is a test in here that, I need to record, pathogen information. But this one is set up to do sampling, right? So we've got an AQL setup on this. So which means that, I might have received a quantity of 10,000. I'm only going to, sample 10 of these. In this case, I've got a quantity of 10 and a sample size of 10. Normally this would be, receive 1,000. I'm going to sample 10 of those out of that lot number. I'm going to do 10 samples of that lot number. And so the way it works is when I go to enter the quantity for one of these things, it's going to pop up the sampling page for it. And it gives me some information up at the top here and the, sort of some statistics on the samples and then over here on the side. So now it's the same lot number, but I'm doing 10 different tests on that lot number, right? And I'd have to enter something really big to make it fail, but I can go in there and make it fail and all that kind of stuff. And it yelled at me that I'm not allowed to enter a number that big. But you can go in there and enter all your samples on this, and it keeps the statistics and tells me if it's a pass or a fail based on the rules that I've set up. Or you can use a sampling worksheet here that goes in, and then you can see all the things that you need to collect samples on and enter them all on one sheet. So very nice interface for doing sampling. And you'll notice there's only 2 fields here, and that's because the third one, E. coli present, it doesn't matter if it's present, it's going to be a failure regardless of what samples I have. So you can mix and match your sampling mechanisms. All right, so that's a little on the sampling side. Last thing I'll show you, I promise, and I see there's a bunch of questions. Looks like they're all being answered though. So I'm probably going to run out of time to answer your questions at the end, but it looks like most of them have been answered already. But let's look at this lot information. Now, you'll notice, if you remember on the setup, I didn't have any way of creating tests against the lot information card, automatically. I can go into a template and manually create a test on lot information, but I don't want to do that. I want to be, when I'm in the lot information card or the lot information list, I want to be able to create a test here. Well, how the heck do I do that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in to this automate button that probably hardly anybody ever uses, but is very, very useful. When I click that, you'll see this create test on lot info. Well, I created that. All I did was I went, create action based on the flow. And then it popped this in here, read what was in Power Automate and added this button here. And when I click that, what it's going to do, you'll notice there's no tests for this lot information card right now. What it does is it pops up, says, hey, do you want to run this flow? Give it a second because it's taking its time for some reason. Hit run flow, and it's running the flow. And when I refresh the page here, it's going to come in. The Power Automate stuff runs asynchronously, so it's usually pretty much instant, but it might take a little, few seconds. But it's created that test for me automatically on the lot information, and we can go in and look at it and fill in the details and everything else on that. Okay. And, I just chose a random test to use, but it brought in lot information and all that kind of stuff on that test. And that's really easy to do. Let's actually have a real quick look at what that flow looks like. So now I'm in Power Automate. When you create it, basically Business Central will drop this in. By the way, you don't want to go into the new designer, otherwise it won't work. It won't show your action in the page. But at any rate, you fill this in. You can leave these blank and just use it for every company. But down here under this run action, as soon as this has come in, I just add this run action. And you'll notice under this API category, we've got a few, but we've got quality inspection here. That's the one you want to use. And quality inspection, I've got a whole bunch of stuff I can do. I can come in here, I can create a new test, I can assign a test, I can block lot numbers, I can block the package number, serial number, I can change pretty much anything I can do within the user interface of Business Central, I can do from Power Automate, right? Which means I could monitor, Teams channel, and if somebody says, hey, this lot number is no good, I could go in, I could block that lot number, create a test for it, do everything right through Power Automate, or send a Teams message from Power Automate when something in the test changes. So dirt simple to come in and set this up. And that's all I had to do in order for that action to run right within Business Central. And while I'm here, actually, it's just going to bail out of this. While I'm here, let me show you this guy. We'll edit him. This is one where I'm saying, hey, when a record changes in Business Central, so when something changes in a quality inspection, and I could put filters on here to say, hey, if it fails or whatever, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post a message in Teams that says, hey, this test number, blah, blah, blah. I've got all of this information that goes into Teams to, well, in this case, goes to my demo team and the quality inspector channel. So I can post messages based on changes in the quality inspector. So it's a great way to do alerts if something fails or whatever you want to do. So pretty powerful when you look at the workflow integration and the Power Automate integration within Quality Inspector. All right. So let's go back into Quality Inspector and let me think about if there's anything that I missed talking about. There's a bunch of stuff with analysis. I'd suggest, if you want to see some of these things, you can, install the trial version of Quality Inspector. You get a 30-day trial. You can extend it if you really wanted, but you can go in and, sorry, I keep clicking the wrong thing. You can go in there and, mess with that, see what kind of results you get. You can use analysis mode in all of these areas to do analysis, like pivot tables on all the details and everything else. So lots of tools for analysis. There's reports. So yeah, there was a question there. It already got answered, but I'll mention it again just for everybody else that was wondering. There are reports for where the heck is it? So COA, actually, I guess this report's one here. COA, your nonconformist reports, inspection reports. You can create whatever reports you want. You can customize these reports as much as you like. So there is reporting out of the system and everything else, and a lot of analysis views as well that you can use to do analysis, like how many times did this item fail? What was the field that failed the most, like the measurement that failed the most, all of those sorts of things. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to mention. So this is great. This is all in Business Central. If you want to run it on a phone or a tablet, you have that ability as well. So what I've got here is I've got a representation of this, running on a phone, right? So this is kind of the phone interface, the standard Business Central application. But I can go in there and I can say, let me look at all my open tests that are assigned to me. So these are all the ones that are assigned to me. I can grab one of these guys and I can enter all the values here the same way I can in Business Central, right? Just on the phone, or you're probably using a tablet, but I can do a phone. And I can do all the same stuff that I can do in Business Central, right? From here, move the inventory, or take photos of that product, which you can take the photos in Business Central as well, but mobile device is easier to take photos of the test results and everything. So at any rate, this is it running on a mobile device. There is that specific role center that you run that tailors the experience to both tablets and phones. All right. Now I think I've talked myself out and we're over what I promised the limit would be, I think. Let's go back and, you're like, wow, that was awesome, Mark. I want to buy it. How much does it cost? Well, not that much. So it's licensed per company. It's not licensed per user or anything else. One cost. You buy it, you're good to go. We can help you implement it, which you probably want. We have fixed price implementation projects, pretty low cost, and it's set price. And we'll help you get it all set up, and then we'll support you and everything on it afterwards. And away you go. If you want to use some of that AI stuff I talked about, you will need your own Azure AI subscription. So, if you have that already, there are free plans available that you can use, but it's not a ton of money to be able to use some of that. Eventually, Microsoft, I think, will include that pricing right within Business Central, but for now, you need to have your own subscription. So there might be an additional cost for that. For you specifically, it doesn't come through us. Check with your partner for the software cost and the implementation pricing. We actually do list the price on the website as well. But again, it is licensed per company, not per user. All right. Oh, and there is actually another interesting question in the chat there in the question box. How does this compare to the Business Central quality? So Business Central doesn't have a quality module as of, well, now. Maybe if you're watching this video a little later, it will, but it has the quality measures on the routings, which is very, lightweight. It's really informational, and we can use those quality measures within the quality inspections. If you remember, I talked about that when we add those fields. Now, Business Central is coming out with a quality module in likely preview in late 2025 and maybe available in 2026. That'll be a great module, but it's a subset of the functionality that you saw today. So definitely it's a good place to start. But if you need a solid quality inspection system, this is the guy to go with. All right. Now, if you do have any additional questions, feel free to give us a shout. Again, check with your partner for pricing and everything else. Go to qcfordynamics.com for more information. There's online videos, ton of videos there on how to do a ton of stuff within Quality Inspector. I think we've got 20 videos on that site that show you various features. And let us know if you have any questions.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more great content, and remember to hit that bell icon to stay updated. See you in the next video.